Now, to get started in the reef aquarium hobby, basically making sure you've got a half decent light, making sure you have good water flow, making sure you have a decent protein skimmer, good biological media, and away you go. You start out with some easy coral to keep. You really want number one corals. You want things like zonanthus, things like leather corals, things like corellas, things that are easy to keep. Do your own tests, get to learn the system, get to understand how it all works. Then over time, you can slowly get more gear as you see the need. You may then start to get a UV sterilizer. You may get dosing pumps. You may get an algae reactor. You may get a GFO reactor. But you can sort of get bits of equipment as you see the need for them. And what I recommend is that if you're a beginner, meaning year one, stick with number one corals. So a number one coral is a coral that's easy to look after. Corellas, zonanthus, leathers. There's some beautiful examples of these corals that you can get. Some lovely recordias, bubble corals. Then over time, let's say year two, you start getting a little bit more confidence, start getting some euphyllias, maybe get a clam, get a bit more confidence. Then let's say year three, you're going to get more and more confidence, and then you can start looking at SPSs and some of the harder to keep corals. And then over that time, you may get very fancy with some of the monitoring equipment that's available, and you may get better of everything. And therefore your equipment is slowly getting improved, as is your knowledge on what you're actually meant to be doing, because you're slowly improving your skills and you're slowly improving the equipment that you have to work with your skills, because ultimately it is the equipment that you've got and the knowledge that you have that drives your aquarium. But I'm finding these days a real pattern of people with all the gear but no idea. So they go and buy the best skimmers, they buy algae reactors without really understanding how they work, they buy UV sterilizers, they buy all the control gear but they don't even know how to work it, they get fancy lights that they don't know how to set. So it would be my advice to, if you can afford to get all the gear, go for it. But maybe it's not even a bad thing to get somebody involved to help you look after it, or to make sure, if you're someone that's going to do all the research on this, then get all the gear and you're probably going to do really, really well. But what I want to encourage is not the gear that makes you go well. It's the experience that you have that go well. I've got customers with very basic setups and their corals are absolutely thriving. I have other customers that have got all the best gear, but they don't have the experience to look after what they want to look after. So therefore, they still do terribly badly. So I want to just encourage that having all the gear doesn't mean that you're going to have an idea. It would be my advice to start in this hobby. Do what you can afford. Start easy. Learn. Do the tests. But go thinking that you're going to buy an Apex, the best lights and best everything, and instantly have a good aquarium. It's just really not the way it is. There is stuff that needs learning. It is a lot of fun. But my advice is start with easy to keep stuff and then increase your confidence. And as your confidence increases, then you can get harder to keep species. And when you do buy corals, you really want to focus on the ones that you succeed with. Because as an aquarium advisor, I find that if I go to an aquarium that hasn't been looked after properly, the corals that are still thriving are the ones that are generally the easier ones to keep. Things like leathers, things like corellas, things like zoanthus. Even when all the other corals are dying, the easy to keep corals tend to keep thriving because they're more forgiving. And having good gear is not necessarily the answer. Anyway, let us know what you think.